says not yet. And we are live. I'm live here with Marie McCausland. Hi, Marie. I didn't ask you, Marie. Where are you today? I'm in
Oh, I'm
Montreal,
in
Canada.
Cleveland, Cleveland,
Cleveland,
Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio. So quite some distance.
A little bit.
Yeah. So I'm starting the live. This is going to be the live taping of a future episode of the Papa PhD podcast. But if you are on YouTube or on LinkedIn or even on Facebook and you follow Papa PhD, you can actually comment, ask questions. Marie is going to share some of her story. Today is going to be about, we're going to start at least the conversation around the question of maternity leave and university policies and Marie's experience changing them at her university. And I think it's a very, very important question. It's something that can be daunting at times. Like how can I change policies in such a large organization as a university? So I'm super happy to have you here, Marie.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
So just for people who are watching, this is going to be a live taping of the podcast, like I said. So in a couple of minutes, I will start, and if you're a listener of the Papa PhD podcast, you'll kind of recognize the the process. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna greet you, and then go through Marie's bio, and then we'll start the conversation. I'm just gonna wait a few seconds. I'm gonna do some checks here just to see if everything is going well on the different platforms, and it is. We are live. Perfect. All right. So Marie, I think we can start. Uh, well, first, maybe some for the people who are watching. Marie and I crossed paths at a pitch club, which is something worth mentioning. On if you're on LinkedIn, you there is such a thing as a pitch club, which depending on where you are in the world, there's different like chapters. But yeah, it was a kind of a coincidence. I was pitching the PhD Dojo, which is kind of a new section of the podcast that I'm doing, and Marie was there, and she has a PhD, and what I said resonated with her, and more people even. Actually, I was surprised at the reaction that I got at the pitch club. But I think it's worth mentioning. If you have an idea, if you have a business, if you have a project that you need to practice pitching, there's such a thing, and it's free as the pitch club. And I don't know, Marie, if you have a comment on that.
Oh yeah, I love Pitch Club. I've been attending weekly for the past, I think, 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always amazing. Got 3-minute pitches, and sometimes they're completely impromptu, and you just come, and it's a completely safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 pitches, 3 minutes each, and then everyone gets feedback. They take turns.
Yeah.
You share your own feedback, and then we share ours. And I think, yeah, I really resonated with with your pitch, and I was like, I need to stay in contact with you because I have stories.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm just so people can find Pitch Club. Um, Maybe you can help me. The So on LinkedIn, the best way to find it's Martin is do
Well, if you look
pitch.
up Pitch Club, it's
Oh, okay, it's gonna pop up.
yeah,
All
it's
right.
like the orange and blue lettering of Pitch
Mm-hmm.
Club.
Very good. So definitely do that. Even for if you're a student and you're you're preparing for I don't know uh, some pitching some project or talking about your your poster, organize a pitch club around you. It's a great concept. And anyway, that's where we met. So now we're well into the live. Things are going well. We've kind of introduced ourselves quickly, but it's time to start the recording of the podcast. And so I'm just going to bring up the notes I have here and start. So welcome to this new episode of Papa PhD. Today I have with me Marie McCausland. Marie is a scientist, doula, and maternal health advocate, and is the founder of the nonprofit Mom Effect. Oh, on the nonprofit Mom Effect and DG Doula app. She survived a near death experience with postpartum preeclampsia in 2017 following the birth of her son, an experience which put her life and work into perspective and changed her career trajectory entirely. Marie has shared her experience through her TEDx talk in 2019, at the March for Moms in 2017 and 2019, and in dozens of talks across the US, aimed at increasing awareness and promoting change. Marie has a PhD in molecular virology from CWRU, a master's in public health from Kent State. She is a CAPPA trained postpartum doula and is currently working on her MBA. She has one amazing son, Jeffrey, with her dedicated husband, Jeffrey McCausland. Welcome to Papa PhD, Marie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's really a pleasure, and it was kind of a great like coincidence of crossing paths with you on this other platform, which is Pitch Club, which actually I can mention in the show notes because I think it could be interesting to listeners. But why we're here today is around this question of being a woman in science and motherhood, and actually your experience with motherhood now has expanded to being a doula and a certified doula and working on that side of things and really helping moms. But I think we can talk about that a little bit later. Um, but the first thing that I'd like to ask you is, apart from all that I said in this intro, what would be one thing you would add so that people listening learn a little bit more about who Marie McCausland is?
Yeah, so I mean, I shared briefly in the bio, but the sort of uh, thing that changed everything for me was when I gave birth to my son. So after I had him, 5 days later, I had postpartum preeclampsia,
Mm-hmm.
which is a condition where basically your blood pressure is high and you can stroke or seize or even die. And
Mm-hmm.
so that near death experience really changed the course of my life and turned me into this maternal health advocate, fierce advocate for other moms. And uh, like I said, and like you said in the intro, it really, changed my path from what I initially thought of
Mm-hmm.
always being a bench scientist doing HIV research to now an entrepreneur and doula and,
Mm-hmm.
a speaker. So, yeah, it changed everything.
Mm-hmm. I can only imagine how an experience like that can be, because apart from the personal experience of the possibility of dying, you also, it comes kind of together with this great, or this potentially, or this hopefully great experience of having this new person in your life, which is your child. And I can only imagine how heart wrenching, and even for your family and your close ones, how difficult it might have been to go through that. But thankfully, you are here today. Things
Yes.
didn't go didn't go that way, and now you're on a mission to help people around parenthood and motherhood. It's really inspiring. Um, the title of or the theme of our conversation is changing university policy around maternity leave, around motherhood. So it's a theme again around women in STEM and women who want to have children and who want to build a family in STEM. And you have some advice, or actually, let's say you have some personal experience with that precisely. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was a postdoc when I found out I was pregnant.
Hmm.
It was like week 1 postdoc found out pregnant.
Oh wow.
And yeah, my PI was like, "Oh, okay, so that's happening." And luckily he's amazing. He had just had his grandson, so it was like, he was all baby happy anyway, so I really caught him at a good time. And uh the policy at my university at the time was for grad students and postdocs and staff only 6 weeks of paid leave. And
Mm-hmm.
you could take longer. You could use up your vacation and sick leave. And I ended up doing that in order to stay home for 10 full weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, um, I was really unhappy with having to go back to work
Mm-hmm.
so early, and the fact that, you know, we were only getting 6 weeks, and faculty were getting 16 weeks of leave,
Mm-hmm.
and so um, what we wanted to do as the postdoc association, because our university had a postdoc association, we made it a goal to try to change and increase our paid leave policy.
Okay.
So, yeah, we had hoped that we could get it closer to 16, and we were able to increase it from at least 6 to 8 weeks. Um,
Okay. Okay. So it's still, I my, I have two kids myself, and a 6 week old baby is is really tiny. Is really dependent on his mom a lot.
yeah.
And it sounds, I know the policies in the US in general are towards the shorter side of things in terms of maternity leave, but yeah, it only seems, because the postdoc is a job, right? So why aren't you, why not get the same benefits as other employees? How did those conversations go, first amongst postdocs? Were there a lot of other moms or moms to be around you that were living through these questions and this anxiety, maybe?
Yeah, so I was at the time the committee chair for the women's initiative. I was the chair for the women's initiative committee.
Hmm.
And so, and we also had a women's center on campus where the staff had been, trying to push for 8 weeks of leave for a long time.
Hmm.
Um, and in the US, so, just a little bit of like background in the US, there is no paid maternity leave guaranteed to anyone.
Hmm.
There is guaranteed unpaid maternity leave up to 12 weeks for those who qualify for it, where there's a lot of stipulations where it depends on the size of the company and how long you've been there. Um, but no paid leave is mandatory. And what we decided to push for, rather than the full 16 weeks, because we could have
Hmm.
pushed for 16 weeks, we thought having it be a little bit more incremental would be helpful. So we decided, after talking with the grad students, because there was grad students who are also parents.
Hmm.
So we met with a group of grad students. We had the postdocs get together, postdoc moms, faculty moms, or yeah, and the staff moms and parents. Really, it wasn't just moms, it was parents,
Hmm.
because we pushed for 8 weeks of parental leave.
Okay.
Both parents would be able to receive 8 full weeks, rather than discriminating and only allowing one parent to get more than the other, when the
Hmm.
reality is both parents need to be with their
Yeah, ideally,
children.
yeah, yeah.
So we actually we pushed for not just maternity leave increase, but parental leave
Parental.
increase. So we actually changed it from so it was 6 weeks for the birthing individual and 3 weeks for the non-birthing individual,
Perfect.
and we were able to increase it to 8 weeks for both.
Wow.
And the way that we were able to do that is pretty is kind of a funny story. So I had seen on, I think probably Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, the statistics around dogs.
Okay, I'm
And
curious.
how, yes, okay, so in many states there are laws that prevent you from separating a puppy from its mom
Hmm.
until
Hmm.
they're 8 weeks old. Um, and so I I was on the faculty senate as a postdoc rep, and I brought this to them first. Well, the whole group of us, grad students, postdocs, and staff, but I was
Hmm.
the lead on this, and I was like, so in Ohio, there's a law that you cannot separate a puppy from its mom until they're 8 weeks old. But
Hmm.
our institution is making our parents come home at 6 weeks. So we literally don't even have the same rights as dogs. And and so the faculty senate was like, the women's faculty senate that I was in was like, okay, we're all on board. Like, let's figure out how to get this in front of the executive committee. So that
Okay.
means that the president, the provost, and the full faculty senate, because they're the ones that basically get to decide these things.
Hmm.
And through it took several months, but eventually I was put on the executive committee's agenda,
Okay.
and I presented this statistic to them. So I was like, okay, so again, in Ohio, and in a lot of states in the US, dogs
Have more
get
rights.
8 weeks with their babies, and you're not you're giving us 6. And
Hmm.
I literally went, can you get us to dog level?
Oh my. Okay. It's
In
it's sad in a way,
Yes.
but it's smart. It's smart. It's a smart way to put it because it's so shocking. Now,
Yes.
just before you go on, it seems to me that clearly first you had to have kind of a base, kind of a base of people talking and finding the messaging. Then there's levels, there's tiers of
Yes.
authority that you need to
You had to
escalate
go up.
to.
Exactly.
Okay, that's interesting
Yes.
because I guess the first person you're gonna go to, you need to be strategic about
Yes.
who that is.
Yes. So the first people is your peers, So if you're a grad student, go, to your grad student, faculty, there's usually a grad
A
student
community
committee
or
or
yeah,
something,
yeah, a committee.
um you go to them, drum up support, and work with the other folks who are looking to increase their parental leave. And
Hmm.
for us, it was grad students, postdocs, and faculty. We were all getting 6 or 3 weeks. And what we did in addition, the dog statistic was like the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it's a
What
shocker. Like,
Yeah, and but what we also did was we provided statistics around the paid parental leave at other institutions that
okay,
our institution considers their aspirational institutions or sort of equivalent institutions. So
makes
being able
sense.
to show them like, hey, we're behind these other institutions, was important, and was definitely something that moved the needle. But it wasn't until I literally went into that room with them and was like, get us to dog level,
Hmm.
that they literally told me, they're like, okay, this isn't a discussion anymore about if we're doing it, let's figure out how we do it. So it
Hmm.
changed the conversation entirely. And that it is a little bit dehumanizing, but I have to say, this is the same thing that happened with things like domestic abuse. So like the
Hmm.
first laws in the United States were for abuse of animals. So there were laws preventing you from abusing animals in the 1800s. We didn't get child abuse laws preventing that until the 1970s, and then it wasn't
Hmm.
until like
Wow.
the 1990s that we got our first like domestic abuse laws. And literally those previous laws about animal abuse were used as evidence that, hey, like, you aren't even providing kids and
With
adults with the
protection.
same sort of protection that you're providing animals. And so it's sort of
Oh
like
my.
using the same model as
That was
the
really smart.
abuse ones. And it is a shocking statistic. It
Hmm.
gets
Hmm.
people's attention.
And just out of curiosity, these model institutions that you were talking about, what does it look like in their organization? The maternity parental leave rights.
Yeah, so most of them were providing at least 8 weeks.
Okay.
Some of them were providing 8 weeks for both parents.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Some of them were still providing, less to the other parent. And but as that was happening, as we were like getting this like through, there started to be some lawsuits being like
Okay.
taken against having those sort of discriminatory policies where it was like you were providing more for the birthing parent than the non-birthing parent, and so they were like, we're scrapping it so that we don't get sued.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that was probably the more of the motivation. But yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
and the motivation for a lot of institutions. So that's something to think
It's
about too. And I think we were able to provide, if I'm correct, 1 or 2 weeks for miscarriages as well.
okay.
Um,
That yeah, that's really really interesting and important.
hmm
Because and question, would that include also mental health resources because for families, for couples who are going through that, it might be important too.
for miscarriage. So I think, well, for all of it,
Or even
we
even
had
also
our.
pre postpartum depression also, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, our institution, you would get, mental health services provided through like your insurance.
Mm-hmm,
And I think they were just starting to have some like fringe benefits where you would have even more
mm-hmm,
sort of mental health services provided. Um, but yeah, those are definitely
mm-hmm.
important as well. In addition to having leave, to having those mental health resources.
So what I'm getting from what you're saying right now is look around at what's happening in the space, because again, like you were saying, your institution might be looking up to other institutions, and if you bring those examples, it's going to speak to the person you want to speak to and to the deciders. Also, that historical aspect of seeing how people used arguments like animal rights
Yeah.
to bring rights to humans, which is it's a bit
It's crazy, but it
it is
it
crazy,
it is crazy.
but
And it
it's so
sucks.
striking that it must be super effective. Go ahead, go ahead,
No, I mean, it does suck that you have to like basically
go
dehumanize
there.
yourself, to
Yeah.
be able to get people to understand the
Mm-hmm.
lack of resources and rights that we have as parents.
Mm-hmm.
But it is effective. So,
So you can't be afraid to shock your stakeholders that you're trying to get to a little bit.
yeah, I was never afraid to shock them. That might be a me thing, but
Yeah. Yeah, well, and the thing is, what sounds interesting is how, and I'm going on a little bit on a tangent here, but how a culture that it's kind of an arcane culture that comes from behind people with one very striking example, like the one about animal rights, can be woken up to, oh my gosh, look at what we've been doing all these years. Let's change it now.
yeah.
And so raising your voice and talking is really the first step, and then it's really really impressive. And so in the end, it was 8 weeks for the birthing and 8 weeks for the non-birthing parents.
Yep.
That's really really good coming from where it was.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, fathers got an increase of 5 weeks, or non-birthing
On
parents,
non-birthing parents. Mhm.
and, the birthing parent got an additional 2 weeks, and,
Mhm.
everyone also got, the I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 weeks for miscarriages as well,
Mhm. Mhm.
so, that they would have time to be able to heal and
Yeah,
recover, at least,
heal in every aspect.
a
Yeah.
little bit, as well as the, mental health,
Mhm.
being able to take off some time when that happens.
Very, very, very interesting. So, and that has stayed as a policy because now you're no longer at a postdoc there, right?
Correct. Yeah, I
But the
haven't been there for a
policy
couple years.
remained, I guess. And is
Hmm.
there now like someone who's responsible for getting, moving the pushing the envelope a little bit more, or is that kind of status quo was reached and is now it's now a current balanced thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I know there. So my husband actually is a postdoc, still at Case Western, and he was on, a committee that was working to make the insurance policies better
Hmm.
for
Okay.
families.
Okay.
So our the prices that parents were paying at my institution at Case Western were exorbitant. I mean,
Okay.
$1,500 a month
Oof.
for two people added to your policy, and single postdocs were paying literally nothing. And so what we did is we made it more equitable, because the reality was, because our insurance policy was so terrible,
Hmm.
people who wanted to come to Case Western as a postdoc couldn't, because they couldn't bring their families. They could not afford to put their families on that plan,
Mm.
and pay that much. So now it's capped at, I think, 30% of their income,
Okay.
which is really, it's on, similar to what the faculty and staff were paying.
Okay.
I think they were paying like 45% of their income was
Hmm.
literally going to their insurance plans.
This is great.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, of my husband's income.
Hmm.
I was
Hmm.
on there because I had lost my job, and and I originally was the one. It was funny because just, a couple years earlier, my husband was the one who didn't have a job, and I
Hmm.
was the postdoc that had, I had all of us on the plan.
Yeah.
And then it switched, and you know
Yeah.
we were just paying way too much, and
Yeah.
they just got that changed. So they, again, worked with faculty senate, got a bunch of input from postdocs, and it's really about
Hmm.
organizing,
Yeah.
organizing with the other postdocs and PhD students to make it what you need it to be.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And find arguments that really speak to the deciders. Yeah. Very.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Very. Very cool. So, okay, this is super interesting. I think we've kind of covered the steps that you guys took to get there, and it's organizing first, like kind of grassroots, then bringing it up tier by tier, because you need to be to have the support of one tier to get to the next tier. That's what I
Yep.
understood, right?
Hmm.
Because they're the ones who are going to put it on on the desk of the next of the
Exactly.
next decider, and then yeah, finding the right arguments, and yeah, being organized, and I think it's really really cool. So in the last episode about motherhood in STEM and motherhood in university, Krishna Kadiyala was kind of talking about being a little bit alone in that, and I think the example that you've just shown and told shows kind of a way to make things happen, and it takes more people than just one, and I think it's really really inspiring. Now, so what came after the postdoc then? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know, so today you have your company, you're an entrepreneur, and you are helping parents, like we mentioned. But
Hmm.
there's for sure there's more story in between, right?
Yeah, yeah. So when I was nearing the end of my grant funding as a postdoc,
Hmm.
so I had done 3 years of T32 grants,
Okay.
and I was getting near the end, and my PI was like, I can't keep supporting you. Try to
Hmm.
find something. He knew that I was interested in uh, transitioning away from bench to doing
Okay.
more public health. And he was like, you don't like being here. And it was true. After I had my son, it was like, it was hard to find the passion anymore for
To go
doing
back to the bench.
molecular virology, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it just literally seemed, I would say to myself, like, this is literally on the molecular level that I'm looking at something and
Mm.
women are dying.
Hmm.
Women are dying right now, and I'm sitting here doing a Western blot, you know,
Mm.
and it just seemed like it just made no more sense.
Mm.
And so, you know, I had been trying to apply to different, more public health related jobs, but because I hadn't finished my master's in public health yet, I wasn't getting any traction. And
Hmm.
so I sort of, was like, okay, I'm just going to apply to an industry job. And
Yeah.
so I knew someone at a local, you know, biotech company, and that was, you know, that's how you get an industry job, is you basically know someone. And I mean, that's the reality. Like, that's
It
like,
is.
you know,
Networking is key.
it's
Key.
networking
Yeah.
is almost 100% the way you get a job. And so, you know, I was able to, you know, interview, got the job. Um, and the person who actually had been the one who recommended me ended up being super abusive and was
Oh.
awful the entire, you know. And so, um, you know, I was there for 3 months, and had horrible experiences, you know, HR, you know, involved, like trying to, you know, do the whole like, um, mediation thing. And they
Hmm.
just basically decided, you know, it'd be easier for us to let you go than to change the culture
Hmm.
of our
Hmm.
institution, which they, of our, you know, company, which, you know, they were like, yelling is in our culture. And I was like, that is not acceptable to me.
Okay.
You know,
Mm.
so it was, yeah, it was really, you know, so I, you know, I got fired after 3 months in an industry
Mm.
job, got fired, got a nice severance package, because I was like, you're going to give me my severance, because this is dumb. And they agreed.
Mm.
And, you know, I was able to like, collect unemployment because they fired me without, you know, cause.
Without cause. Hmm.
And so that was good. You know, I was able to get the benefits that, you know, I'd basically paid into for the last
Hmm.
decade. uh, you know, be able to finally utilize the unemployment and take a breather for a little bit and start
Hmm.
actually, um, figuring out what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the public health, and so I was like, let's just go all in. Like,
How do I get there? Yeah.
how do I get there? Exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
that's interesting. And first, it looks like, or it seems like, being fired was actually kind of the best things, because you don't want
Oh,
to
it's
leave,
great.
you don't want to work. Well, apart from the benefits that you got, you don't want to have to be day by day in a culture that is that aggresses you. So
Yeah,
it
it
sounds
was.
like actually was the best outcome for that specific experience.
Yeah, it was good. And, you know, uh, the whole situation was weird. I had like their stockholders afterwards were like, you know, talking about me on their Reddit. And it was just like, this company's weird.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like,
Well,
you know,
live
like,
and learn,
you
live
know,
and learn.
yeah,
But
exactly. So I'm like, I was very happy to be able
to not be
um,
there anymore.
to not be there and then to actually pursue what I wanted to.
Yeah. And so now you touched a very interesting point, which is, how do you get into public policy? Uh, how do you were at the bench doing molecular virology for all this time. There was this interest. What are the steps you take to start, probing this new space, meeting people maybe, and then going into it?
Yeah, so I mean my situation is obviously unique, but you know, as a PhD, you want to learn everything, right?
Hmm.
And so my first step was to apply for a master's in public health.
Public health.
Or
Okay.
not really my first step, but in 2019, you know, so that was 2 years after I had my near miss. I applied and got accepted to a master's in public health program, and I
Okay.
wanted to do that because I wanted to really understand why this was happening, why the maternal health statistics were what they were. You know, in the U.S., 700 women a year will die from pregnancy-related,
Mm.
complications. 50,000 women a year will nearly die, like
Okay.
myself. And that 750,000 don't even take into account suicides, which are actually the number one killer of new moms,
Oh.
and postpartum depression, which is the number one complication. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the statistics were horrible, and I really wanted to know what is the public health field, like what are people doing, how does it work, um
Mm-hmm.
how how does it work, like what is public health. That
Mm-hmm.
was the first thing that I wanted to understand. And so I was lucky to get into a really great online master's in public health program. That was important for me to have it to be
Mm-hmm.
online and asynchronous because I had a toddler.
Yeah.
you
Can
know
you can you just tell us and share with the listeners which one it is?
Yeah, Kent State's online master's in public health. I
Perfect.
cannot recommend it enough. It was wonderful. The professors were amazing. I think in my time there I only had one class that I didn't like. um
Well,
and
that's a good
and
batting average.
yeah, exactly. And he already left. He was only there like for one semester to teach, before he moved into a different thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think he was just checked out. So
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, it's a wonderful program.
Well, I'll include it in the show notes for sure, because if
Yeah.
someone is listening is interested in public health and wants to go look at it, I think it's just a good service to add that in the show notes and have a
Yeah,
link
and it's
there.
nationally, you can take the class from anywhere. So
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Very good. And so you did your master's. I guess you met people also. Besides doing the curriculum, and although it was asynchronous, there must have been some aspect of networking or
well,
meeting
so
colleagues or doing projects together.
my network is actually more through the near miss, network.
Okay.
So I guess I can back up a little bit.
Yeah. Sure.
So the reason why I'm here is because I read an NPR article the week before my son was born. And that
Mm-hmm.
NPR article, NPR and ProPublica, that article was about the life and death of a woman called Lauren Bloomstein, who was a NICU nurse, and her husband was a doctor. And she tragically died from postpartum preeclampsia, which was the same
Okay.
condition that I would
Gotcha.
end up having a week later. And because I'd read that article, learned about the signs and symptoms, knew that it was deadly, I was able
Mm-hmm.
to advocate for myself when I went to the emergency room, and they basically wanted to send me home, even though my blood pressure was, at one point it was
Oh.
200 over 115.
Oh my.
So I was able to advocate for myself. And I had seen that article on Reddit. Um, and so I posted, a little bit after, my experience happened, like maybe a week later, about how Reddit saved my life. And that got a lot of traction and actually got uh, noticed by the people who wrote the article.
Okay.
And so they contacted me, interviewed me. And so that started my maternal health advocacy career,
Mm-hmm.
where, I worked for Merck for Mothers for a year as their, spokesperson. So Merck
Mm-hmm.
is, Merck,
Yeah. Merck. Yeah.
and
The
they
pharma.
have Merck is Merck. And they have this program, this amazing program called Merck for Mothers, where they dedicate, millions of dollars towards programming across the world to help decrease these horrible statistics. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was able to work with them for a year. I spoke at March for Moms, did a lot of public speaking engagements, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of writing, and through that I met so many people, and have continued to build up a network based
Mm-hmm.
on this experience that I had, and the shared experience that a lot of people have had around, near miss, or even, tragically, I know a lot of fathers who their wives passed away,
Mm,
either due to, complications in pregnancy, or, from postpartum depression and suicide. And it's,
mm,
those, you know, that's how I built my network, through sharing, through talking to people, through going to these events. And, um, it made me, as I was learning and hearing all these stories, it made me want to, like I said, know more. And so I
mhm,
went to school. Um, and then just recently, just in the last 6 months, I finally decided to
mhm.
become a Kappa trained doula, postpartum doula. And actually, now I'm getting birth doula training too,
Oh, wow.
so that I can help folks in that capacity as well. Because I had this feeling that, even though I know that I've saved lives, I don't know how
Mhm,
many, but
mhm,
people contact me relatively regularly about how sharing my story helped them recognize their symptoms,
mhm,
and save their life. I've advocated for policy at, my hospital system, actually on the state level as well, where they're actually implementing changes where people are receiving education
mhm,
about, these symptoms. And also the emergency room providers, they're getting better training, so that when, moms come to the emergency room, they actually get seen by an OBGYN, versus, the same way a dad, or a guy would, get to see his cardiologist stat if he
mhm,
was holding
mhm,
his heart. So, changing the way that moms experience pregnancy and postpartum has been
mhm.
my goal. But it's sort of at like a higher level, like you don't get to see the impact, right? And so I decided to train as a doula, so that I could
Okay.
literally hold their babies while they slept and take care of them, and see the change in them as they go from being just plain exhausted, like,
Yeah.
please, I need to sleep, to like greeting me in the morning being like, hey, how was the night, like, you know like, how are you doing?
Yeah,
It's wonderful to know and see the difference that you're
of
making.
course. Of course. And this is, I'm gonna share something here for people
Yeah.
watching. But so if people go to www.dgdoula.com, that's where they find your services, right?
So that's one of my, latest offerings. So I'm building an app. Um
Okay.
and the app will be a way for parents to access their local village of support. So
Okay.
whether that be doulas, whether that be mental health professionals, um, and, I'm based in Cleveland. So one of the things that we're doing is, jointly with DigiDoula and my nonprofit, Mom Effect, is community baby showers. So
Okay.
we, gather donations, and even just buy stuff off of Facebook Marketplace from parents who are
Mm-hmm.
trying to get rid of their stuff, and, need a little bit of extra cash right now because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Buy some stuff from Facebook Marketplace, and then provide that to community members who need it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really really cool. I also am sharing your the handle, the Twitter
Yeah.
and Insta handle for that. It's at DigiDoula app, just like that. But I will share all of this information in the show notes. As also, I'm going to share the Mom Effect. Any links that Marie has mentioned, I will put them in the show notes. I also mentioned in the intro a TEDx presentation.
Yes.
I can put that also in the links. Um, Now, a question, because now you're kind of far from research, far from the bench, but you've gone through that, and I'm sure you know, and you do know because at least your husband is also still a postdoc. People are still going through those issues and those questions, and we're getting to the end of the interview, and I just want to know whether you'd have um, a word of encouragement or some sort of yeah, last words for the podcast for people, couples, moms, maybe single moms who are in grad school or postdocs and who might, after these years of like COVID, be going through very difficult things and have 2 years maybe of accumulated anxiety about maybe getting pregnant or not, or is my, you know, how is my pregnancy going to go okay in these times, and am I going to keep my position? Is there something you want to share with that listener who's now maybe more in a situation of anxiety and doubt?
So I'd have to say the first thing I'd say is that it's completely normal, especially right now in the pandemic, because of the pandemic, to have anxiety or depression or PTSD, surrounding, pregnancy and postpartum. So the estimates before the pandemic were that 1 in 5 parents would have postpartum or, a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, like
Okay.
postpartum depression or anxiety. The estimates are that up to 70% of
Oh my.
parents right now have one of these disorders. And so the first thing I'd say is you're not alone. You're
Mhm.
not alone. This is hard even without a pandemic. But put on top of that the anxiety of trying to keep your baby safe when there isn't a vaccine that's available yet
Mhm.
is really nerve wracking. Another thing I would say is that if you are pregnant right now, I know there was a little questionable, question whether or not the vaccine was safe for pregnant individuals.
Mhm.
And I'd have to, I want to encourage folks who are on the fence to get vaccinated, because the reality is that if you get COVID, it's much more deadly than any potential side effects of the
Okay,
vaccine.
that's an important
There's no
point.
known um, pregnancy related side effects to the vaccine, but there are a lot of deaths
Mhm.
related to COVID
To
for
COVID.
pregnant moms. And
Mhm.
so, I'd encourage them to get vaccinated if they're kind of on the fence. And you know, it's if you're trying to figure out if you even want to get pregnant right now, you know,
Mhm.
um, yeah, I mean, it's always a personal decision. I'd say there's never a great time to get pregnant.
Mhm.
There's never an ideal time. I know there was some discussion on whether it's like better to get pregnant in grad school versus your postdoc versus faculty. I mean, there's never a great time. You'll figure it out. Is basically what
Mhm.
happens. You figure it out. Everything works out. So if you want to have a baby, have a baby. And you're going to figure it out. There's no limit to what you can do as a mom
Mhm.
and a parent. Like once you have a kid, you have a kid, and you're just gonna. I
Yeah,
mean, life happens. You're gonna. If that's what you want, do it.
that's
And
true.
there's people around here, people around you. I'm working on this app to help, build that village and support system to help you through that transition,
Mm.
because it is hard. It is hard for everyone, but especially in this pandemic, and
Yeah.
especially for parents in STEM who, you know, the expectations are extraordinary,
Yeah.
and in academia the tendency is to tie your worth to your productivity,
Mhm.
where productivity is this very narrow thing of papers. Um, right? And so um, you need to, you'll have to, recognize that like your work, academia has this problem, but like your worth is not tied to your papers. Um, productivity
Mhm.
is not only should not only be whether or not you get papers out. I'm definitely always, available as a resource. If people want to reach out to me, I've got a huge network of people who can basically help you through whatever you're going through. So I'd like
That's
to offer
perfect.
myself.
That's exactly where I was gonna go just before say goodbye to everyone. Is how's the best way for people to reach you? Because I know you're on LinkedIn, you're on the different social media. What's the best way if someone who's listening says, okay, I need to talk to Marie? How do they do it?
Yeah, I would say the easiest way would be LinkedIn. But you can also go to, mariemccausland.com, and or Marie, email me at mariemccauslandphd@gmail.com. So those are two
Perfect.
good ways, and they are pretty easy. My LinkedIn is just Marie McCausland, so it's just my name.
Hmm.
And I can help you in any way that I can.
Marie, that's super generous of you. You've been super generous of this time that you were here on Papa PhD, and of your story, the ups and downs. I think it's very the take home message for me for the first part of changing policy at university clearly is get together with other people with a common objective, and then take the right steps of escalating the demands or your arguments to the higher and higher tiers, and have very very good and striking arguments based on what's happening in other places, based on history. I really really liked the story of how you guys made that happen. And then on the maternity side, yeah, super thankful of the offer that you are giving for people to reach out to you, because people often go through things thinking they're alone. I'm thinking of grad school, but not only, but not thinking that there's a village that maybe exists and that they have not seen or that they can create. And I really like this idea of having this app that can help parents create this village which is maybe still invisible to them. I really, really love it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Marie, for having been on the show.
Of course, thanks for having me.
And that's it for the live taping. I hope you had fun. I
Yeah,
I
for sure.
and I'm sure some of those things that we talked about are not easy to maybe remember or talk about. But again, knowing also that you've been advocating for this for a while, it must be, it mustn't be that how can I say, difficult for you to go touch upon them. But still, thank you for going there and for sharing your experience. I think it's really really important.
Yeah, of course. It's yeah, my pleasure. This is what I do. I share my story, with
Hmm.
people in the hopes that that it helps them,
Hmm.
get through what they're going through and know that they're not alone. So
Well, I am, again, I think it's one of the things today that's easy is to feel alone, because society and, society, modern society kind of separates us from our family. We go abroad or we go away,
yes,
and coming back to having this sort of village,
yes.
at least feeling, at least network, is really really important. So
Yeah, it
it really
values
resonates with me a lot.
independence.
Yeah,
Yeah, values independence over community, and so
over
I'm trying
community. Yeah.
to sort of build that
Rebuild.
back
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marie,
Yeah.
this is it for the
Yeah.
for the broadcast. I really enjoyed it, and I think this has the potential of helping a lot of people, and a lot of people in many places. It doesn't just apply to the U.S. And yeah, again, super thankful that we crossed paths and that you were able to have this hour here with me.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, for everyone watching, thanks for if you've watched before, if you watched live or if you're watching later. In any case, thanks for watching. I hope you've appreciated what Marie shared with us, and yeah, I hope you'll be here in a couple of weeks for the next live. Someone says hello, and I'm just seeing the comments here, but it's someone from my network on Twitter. The bold biomed is saying hello.
Oh,
um, uh,
cool.
and yeah, this is it's. I'm still trying to learn this thing of the live, the live taping, but I think I'm getting the hang of it, and I like the I don't know. It changes the my how can I say, the fact that I know that I'm live. I don't know, changes my energy in a way. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Marie. I'm
Awesome.
gonna end the broadcast. Thank you so much, and I'll keep you posted as to when the podcast episode will launch.
Okay. Sounds
All right.
great. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.